Okay, so moving on to question number 5, where it says Deshaun buys a music CD in a store. Deshaun pays with a card using NFC. So NFC stands for near field communication. Okay, it's a type of wireless method. Okay, explain why NFC speeds up the payment process. So normally when it comes to cards, when it comes to credit cards, debit cards, there are various ways that you can use the card. So one is magnetic stripe, where you swipe your card. Okay, then there is something called microchip. So you have a small chip in the card that is placed inside the card reader, and then the transaction takes place. Nowadays, you have cards that support NFC technology. Okay, so when it comes to an NFC card, all you have to do is keep the card on top of the credit card reader. On top of the card reader, you might have seen this happening. You just keep the card on top of the card reader, and the transaction goes through. It happens within a few seconds. The card is kept on top of the card reader. There's a noise teeth, and then the transaction is done. Okay, so they are asking over here, explain why NFC speeds up the payment process. So like I told you, when it comes to magnetic stripe and microchip, when it comes to magnetic stripe technology and the microchip technology, in both instances, in both cases, the card has to be inserted into the card reader. So that takes a few seconds. Either it has to be swiped or it has to be placed inside the card reader. That takes a few seconds. Then the next thing is microchip cards that have microchip. They also require the user to enter a PIN. So the card is inserted in, then the cashier gives the card reader to the customer, and the customer enters a PIN. After the PIN is entered, then the transaction takes place. So this entire process takes, let's say, for example, 10 to 15 seconds. Okay. But none of this happens in NFC. In NFC, the card is placed on top of the card reader. There's no need to enter any PIN. The transaction takes place and then it's complete. Okay. So let's put down that answer over here. You can say in NFC, the card is simply placed over the card reader. Okay. And then the transaction takes place. Okay. It's much faster. Let's say it's much faster because there is no need for the card to be swiped or inserted into the card reader. And further, the customer does not have to enter any PIN. Okay. So normally when you use a microchip card, there is a PIN that you have to enter, a personal identification number. But this does not happen when you use a card that supports NFC. Okay. All right. Superb. Then let's move on to the B question. Over here it says, the CD comes with access to a music streaming service. Describe how streaming works. Okay, so streaming is something that happens over the internet. Okay, so in this case, the music is going to be on a server computer. Okay, the music is going to be stored on a server computer. You, from your laptop or your smartphone or your tab, whatever your device is, from your device using an internet connection, you will be connecting to this server computer. And then from this server computer, the music data, the music files will be sent or will be downloaded into your device. Okay, now when it comes to downloading this data into your device, it is downloaded into something called a buffer. Okay, I told you guys have heard this word before. It is downloaded into something called a buffer. So a buffer is basically a temporary memory in your computer. Okay, this buffer is a temporary memory. So this buffer is holding this music data temporarily for as long as you are listening to the music only. The moment you close the music, this data is gotten rid of. Okay, that's why we call it temporary data. So let's go through the process again. From your device, you access a server computer. This server computer sends the music files to your digital device. Okay, and this music is slowly downloaded into a temporary memory area called the buffer. Okay, so once the data is stored in the buffer, then the music starts playing. Okay, I'll give you guys a quick example. When you watch videos on YouTube, have you noticed a gray color, a kind of a line moving? So you have a red line which shows what you're watching, which shows how much you have watched. And then next to the red line, you would also notice a gray line that is moving ahead of the red line. So the gray line shows you how much has been downloaded in the buffer. So the gray line will show you, for example, 2 minutes have been downloaded, but you're still on 1 minute. Okay, the red line shows you what you're watching right now. It says you're watching, for example, right now you're in 1 minute, 10 seconds, for example, but the gray line is always ahead. Okay, so the gray line shows how much of the video has been downloaded. Okay, the same applies to music streaming as well. Okay, so initially about maybe 5 seconds of the music is downloaded in the buffer, then the music starts playing. So then while you are listening to the music, the remaining files of music is also being downloaded into the buffer, so it does not get stuck. Okay, right, let's put down this answer over here. I hope I did not confuse you. Okay, so let's say in streaming, what is the device she's using? Deshan, they don't say what device he's using, right? The device hasn't been given. Okay, so let's put here in streaming, Deshan will have to use the internet to download the music files into his device. Okay. Okay. In streaming, Deshan will have to use the internet to download the music files into his device. We can go on to say further, the music files are downloaded. Look, guys, they're giving you 4 marks, so we have to give a proper explanation over here. Okay. Further, the music files are downloaded into a temporary memory area called the buffer. Okay, let's put that in. What do we call this? Area called the buffer. Okay. Once around the buffer, once around, you can say, or after around 5 to 10 seconds of music data has been downloaded, the music would start playing. While this music is playing, the remaining data would be downloaded into the buffer. Okay, so this is basically how streaming works. Okay, if you want, guys, you can also go on to say, so the buffer will reduce the chances of the music getting stuck. Okay, but then you'll also have to speak about internet speed and all, because if the internet bandwidth is not good enough, no matter how much is in the buffer, it will get stuck. Okay, this is sufficient enough. This is good enough. Okay, let's go through the answer again. In streaming, Deshan will have to use the internet to download the music files into his device. Okay, further, the music files are downloaded into a temporary memory area. Guys, it's important to say temporary because we are streaming, we are not downloading. Okay, if you download, it's permanently there in your device, but here we are streaming into a temporary memory area called the buffer. After around 5 to 10 seconds of music has been downloaded into the buffer, let's say, just to be very clear with the examiner, that we are not, the music would start playing. While this music is playing, the remaining data would be downloaded into the buffer. Okay, right. Okay. Moving on to the C question over here. They say, describe how the amount of bandwidth available affects Deshan's experience of streaming. So guys, the word that you need to focus over here is bandwidth. When we talk about bandwidth, we are talking about the amount of data that can be transferred every second. So bandwidth is measured in megabytes per second or gigabytes per second. In today's world, it's mostly megabytes per second. Okay. So the higher the bandwidth, the more data you can download every second, okay? Or the more data you can transfer every second. So here they're asking, describe how the amount of bandwidth available affects Deshan's experience of streaming. So let us first give the definition of bandwidth, and then let's go on to say when the bandwidth is higher, the music data, isn't it? the music data in streaming or the streaming data files would be quickly or would be transferred to Deshawn's device in a shorter period of time. Okay, so let's go on to write it over here. Let's say bandwidth is a measure of how much data can be transferred every second. Okay, so a higher bandwidth would allow more data to be transferred uh, to Deshawn's device. Okay, this would ensure that Deshawn listens to his music without it getting stuck. Okay, or instead of saying stuck, let's say without it getting, yeah, stuck is fine. I want to use the word loading, but I don't know how do we put the word loading over here. That Deshawn listens to his music without having to wait for it to load, without having to wait for it to load. Okay, right, this is much better. This would ensure that Deshawn listens to his music without having to wait for it to load. Okay, so guys, if the bandwidth is slow, say for example, it's transferring 10 kilobytes per second. That's really, really slow. So the music streaming files, those files are itself 100 kilobytes, for example. So then to send one packet of data, they're going to have to wait for around 10 seconds, isn't it? So Deshawn, I mean, just for one packet of data, if 10 seconds is going to go, that's a really, really long time. Okay, so then Deshawn is going to have to keep waiting for the music to come into his device. That's going to be a horrible experience for him. Okay, so when the bandwidth is high, okay, the data would be immediately loaded into his buffer and he can start listening to the music without having to wait. Okay, right. The payment system uses an open source operating system. State what is meant by the term open source. Okay, so we have certain softwares that come with an open source software license. Okay, certain softwares, they have some, they are known as open source softwares. Okay, so if a software is an open source software, what happens is the software is provided with something known as the source code. Okay, the software is provided along with the source code. This source code will allow the user to modify the software according to their requirements. Okay, so say for example, there is something known as Open Office. Okay, Open Office is very similar to Microsoft Office. Okay, like you have Microsoft Word, it has Open Office, right? Like you have Microsoft Office spreadsheets, like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Excel, it has Open Office Calc. Okay, very similar. However, Open Office is open source. They give you the entire package, plus they give you the source code as well. So if you know programming and if you know software development, you can modify the software according to your requirements. Okay. Okay. And then further, you are also free to distribute this software. Okay. It's also free for you to distribute. Now, normally, if you purchase the Microsoft Office package, it's only for you. It's only for one user. Okay, you are not allowed to distribute it and reshare it. No, you cannot do any of that. But if it is an open source software, if it is a software that is an open source software, you can modify the software according to your requirements. Further, you can even distribute it to anyone else who is interested in using it. Okay, so let's go on here. You can say open source software provides the, or you can say comes with the source code, allowing users to modify it according to their requirements. Okay. Further, users can also distribute this software as they, okay. So further, they can even go ahead and distribute it as they wish, as they like. Okay. The next question goes on, state two functions of an operating system. Okay, so there are many functions for an operating system. You can say controlling all input and output. Then something else is error handling. Okay. All errors that happen in your computer are handled by your operating system. Then you can say providing a user interface. Then you can talk about managing the memory. Okay, managing the RAM, managing the RAM in your computer is done by the operating system. So you can talk about managing memory. Then you have various resources in your computer. You have a power supply, you have various hardware devices. All this is being managed by your operating system. So you can say resource allocation or managing of resources in the computer. Okay, you can put all this down. You can put, I mean, you need to put only two functions. Okay, I have given you all a few extra as well, but just get down two. Okay. The next one, E question, it goes as online hackers are a threat to Deshawn's data. List two other threats to Deshawn's data. Okay. So online hackers are a threat to his data. Okay. What are the other threats that exist to his data when he's connected to the internet? Okay. So we can definitely talk about viruses. Okay. Viruses are definitely a threat. They can get into your device. They can completely corrupt your data. Okay. So you can talk about viruses. Okay. Then another one you can talk about is something known as spyware. Okay, so spyware is something, it's extremely dangerous because it gets into your computer and it just continuously keeps monitoring everything that you type. Okay, everything that you type on your device is being recorded. Okay, that's one type of spyware. It's known as a keylogger. It keeps track of everything that you type. But then you get other types of spyware that keep tracking your activities on the computer. Okay, and then it sends it to the hacker. Okay, since you're connected to the internet, this activity is also sent to the hacker. Okay, so another threat can be spyware. Okay, something else that also we can talk about is something known, I don't know if you guys have heard of something known as ransomware. Okay, so ransomware basically what it does is it encrypts all your files. Okay, it encrypts all your files, and then the hacker will ask you to make a payment in order for your files to be decrypted. Okay, so that's another uh, threat. Also, something else that you can talk about is something known as accidentally deleting your files. Okay, where mistakenly you format the wrong drive or mistakenly you delete the wrong files. Okay, so you can also talk about accidentally deleting your files or accidental deletion. Okay. Right, moving on to the last question of this paper. This is our final question. Okay, so it's another essay type of question. Evaluate the tools that are available to help individuals stay safe online. So like I have told you for the previous one that I told you, you have to first do a mind map. Think about all the possible tools that are there in order for think of all the tools that are available for individuals to use so that they can stay safe online. When you use the internet, what are the tools that you can use? Okay, so that you may not be bullied online, so that others can't track what you're doing online, so that others can't track your location, so that others can't use your post and pretend to be somebody else. You have to think about all the tools that are available and jot them down. Okay, note them down. Okay, just do a mind map for now. Okay, so what I normally do is on the top area, maybe, or maybe on a blank paper, I do a mind map. I put down all the possible answers that I can think of. Okay, so I have already done mine. I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay, so these are some of the tools that I came up with. Okay, so internet filter, so you can block sites. Okay, you can block sites that may be harmful to you. Okay, then you have parental control software. This is something that parents can use, okay, to ensure that their kids are safe online. You may say, well, this is not properly relevant to the question. Yes, it may not be properly relevant, arguable, but right now we are doing a mind map. I'm just thinking of all the possible answers. Okay, so then I thought about a firewall. A firewall can prevent unauthorized access. Then I thought about the report button. Okay, you have a report button on almost all online platforms. Okay, even WhatsApp has a report button. Okay, then you have privacy settings where you can change the settings so that you can adjust who can see what you post, who can message you, who can friend you. Okay, all these settings can be controlled via privacy settings. Then you have encryption, anti-spyware. So these are the various tools that I came up with. Okay, within 2 to 3 minutes, you have to come up with various tools. Okay, then From these, you see they're giving you 8 marks. So around 3 to 4 points if you can have, not just have the points, you also have to be able to evaluate the points. Look here, guys, the question says evaluate. So you have to talk about the point, okay? You have to talk about the tool. What is the strength of the tool? What are the weaknesses of the tool? What are the goodnesses of the tool? Or how is the tool used? What should be kept in mind when using the tool? Okay, you're doing an evaluation here. You're evaluating the tools. Okay, so remember they're giving you 8 marks. So if you can at least pick 3 tools and evaluate those 3 tools, that's good enough. Okay, that's good enough. Okay. So let me first take my introduction. So this is the introduction that I came up with. Remember, guys, in today's world, staying safe online has become difficult, but it is of extreme importance to know how to stay safe online. Okay, this is a very simple introduction to the topic. Then I go into my first point. Okay, so I'm doing an evaluation of my first point, where the tool that I'm talking about is what? Privacy settings. The tool that I'm using is privacy settings. Okay, so I have given an explanation. So I have first said we spend a considerable amount of time on these platforms. It's important to keep in mind that on such platforms, you get many users with malicious intents. Okay, so individuals must be very particular about those who can see what they post. Okay, they can do this by checking the privacy settings of your account. Okay, so you have to be very particular about who can see what you post, who can see your stories, who can see what you call your personal information, such as your bio and things like that. Okay, and adjust it so that only those who are their friends or only those who follow them can see their posts. Okay, however, okay, we are doing an evaluation here. However, privacy settings may not protect you from users who use identity theft. So you get users who join social media platforms under somebody else's name, under using somebody else's photograph. So they can trick you into accepting their friend request, into accepting their follow request. Okay, so privacy settings will not cover this particular problem. Okay, where people pretend to be somebody else and then gain access to see what you post and your stories and your bio and your personal information and all that. Okay, so I have done an evaluation. Okay, right. The next tool that I have spoken about, what happened? The next tool that I have spoken about, let me copy and paste my next tool. Okay, so the next tool that I have spoken about is the report button. Okay, so I have said there is cyberbullying that takes place online. People sometimes send hate messages. Sometimes somebody might try to share a vulgar pic. I mean, somebody might try to edit a picture of you and share it in a inappropriate way, for example. Okay, or for example, somebody might try to, say something. No, somebody might try to, what do you call, put a comment that is very disrespectful. Okay, so you get this happening online. Okay, you have something called cyberbullying, bullying you online. And very important to know is cyberbullying is worse than physical bullying, since here you may not know who the bully is. Sometimes somebody has shared pictures of you, everybody else is sharing it, so you have no way of knowing who started this. Okay, and you may have no control. You may have, because since each person is sharing it, each person is talking about it, you have no controlling in stopping it. If it's physical bullying, you know who is attacking you, you can directly approach them, you can take control of the situation. But when it's happening online, you do not have this feature, you don't have this facility, you don't have this luxury. Okay, however, all online communities come with a report button that allows you to report anyone that is making you feel uncomfortable and have the organization ban or block them. However, in such instances, it's important to have your friends also report with you. Not only friends, maybe family members, siblings, people like that. Because if it's only you who's reporting, WhatsApp may not take it very seriously. Facebook may not take it very seriously. TikTok may not take it very seriously. You need multiple users reporting the same account, then they're going to look into it. Okay, right. So I have done an evaluation here as well. Okay, and then my final tool that I'm talking about, which is over here. Finally, when accessing confidential, sorry, my bad. Information online, is highly recommended you use a VPN, because VPN connections are encrypted. And so this prevents hackers from gaining access to the information that you are accessing online. Okay, I'm not very happy with this explanation, but it's just that I have put so much of text. I just kept this very short. Okay, but you can, if you want, you can go on to explain how VPN works. Okay, you can say VPN makes your connection invisible or makes your connection private, plus it encrypts the data. So the data is scrambled into a so that your data is scrambled up. Okay, so even if a hacker gets hold of the data, they are not going to be able to understand it. Okay, and then remember, guys, for such questions, you also have to have a conclusion. Okay, your conclusion should definitely be related to the tools that you have mentioned. Okay, if you write an essay, there has to be a conclusion to your essay, right? Okay, so you have an introduction, then you have your content, and then you have a conclusion. Okay, so this is my conclusion. Mentioned above are just a few tools that one can use to stay safe online, but these few tools can really provide you with a safe online experience. Okay, now guys, do not just simply move on. Attempt this question. Do your mind map. Practice doing these questions, because like I told you previously, 8 marks coming from here. Okay, so you have to keep practicing and practicing these questions so that when your day comes to do this, you will be ready for it. Okay, because these questions are generally a little tough. Okay, so you have to have the practice of thinking of all the possible answers, putting them, and then choosing what are the best answers, and then having them organized. Okay, so that can only happen when you keep practicing these questions. Don't just move on. Okay, so the answer and move on. No, try it yourself also now. Okay. Okay, guys, all the very best. We have then come to the end of the 2020 theory paper. Okay, see you. Take care.